Good morning everyone. Today we will be going to start a new chapter, that is water requirement of crops. So here are some of the articles that are definition of irrigation, necessity of irrigation, what are the benefits of irrigation, what are the types of irrigation, and we will also discuss about duty, delta, base period and their relationship. Next we will be reading about kharif and rabi crops. Next we will be reading about some definition that are gross command area, cultivable command area, intensity of irrigation, time factor, crop ratio, crop season, overlap allowances. So we will be reading one by one all of this. So first we will be reading about irrigation. So what do you mean by irrigation? Irrigation may be defined as the process of supplying water by artificial means to the agricultural field for crop production. If the water is available to the plants from rainfall, then it is not sufficient. It is supplemented by irrigation water. If it is used to assist in the growing of agricultural crops, maintenance of landscapes and distributed soils in the dry areas and during periods of inadequate rainfall. So irrigation means to supply the water to the irrigation land or to the agricultural field for the crop production. Okay. So next we will be reading about what are the necessity of irrigation. First, that is insufficient rainfall. When the seasonal rainfall is less than the minimum requirement for the satisfactory growth of the crops, then the irrigation system is essential. So we can say that if the seasonal rainfall is less, then the minimum growth for the crops is also less, is not satisfactory. So the irrigation system is essential. Next, that is uneven distribution of rainfall. When the rainfall is not evenly distributed during the crop period or throughout the cultivable area, then the irrigation is extremely necessary. We can say that if the rainfall is not evenly distributed during the crop period, then the irrigation is extremely necessary. Next, we will be reading about that are improvement of perennial crops. Some perennial crops like sugarcane, cotton, etc. require water throughout the major part of the year, but the rainfall may fulfill the water requirement in rainy season. So for the remaining part of the year, irrigation becomes necessary. So in your mind it may be coming, what do you mean by perennial crops? Perennial crops means those crops which can grow all the year, okay, throughout the major part of the year. So we can say that these are known as perennial crops like sugarcane, cotton, okay, and these crops may fulfill the water requirement in rainy season. So for the remaining part of the year, irrigation is needed for us. So then development of agriculture in desert area. In desert area where the rainfall is very scanty, irrigation is required for the development of agriculture. So you can say that mainly in desert area, that is where the Rajasthan example for example that is Rajasthan, where the rainfall is very scanty or low rainfall, then the irrigation is required for the development of agriculture. Next, we will be reading about what are the benefits of irrigation. First is increase in crop yield, protection from famine, cultivation of superior crops, economic development, hydropower generation, domestic and industrial water supply. So what are the next ill effects of irrigation? Rising of the water table, formation of the maxi land, dampness in weather and loss of valuable lands. So next we will be reading about what are the types of irrigation that we followed in India. There are 4 types. First is surface irrigation, subsurface irrigation, sprinkler irrigation, drip irrigation. So first we will be reading about surface irrigation. Surface irrigation is defined as a group of application technique where the water is applied and distributed over the soil surface by gravity. It is by far the most common form of irrigation throughout the world. It does not result in high levels of performance. This is mainly because of uncertain infiltration rates which are affected by year-to-year changes in the cropping pattern, cultivation practices, climatic factors and many other factors. Okay. So as all of us know, surface irrigation mainly is followed in India and it is the most common form of irrigation throughout the world. And it is defined as a group of application technique where water is applied and distributed over the soil by the surface of any gravity. So it is mainly done in the result that is in the high levels of performance, and this is mainly because of uncertain infiltration rates which are affected by year to year in the cropping pattern. So there are types of some surface irrigation, that are 3 types of surface irrigation. First is basin irrigation, border irrigation, furrow irrigation. So you can see the images here, you can see these images. This is the basin irrigation and this is the border irrigation where the water is supplied here, and this you can see this is the furrow irrigation where the water is supplied in the each slope, in the each side. Okay, this is called as furrow irrigation. So there are 3 types of irrigation: basin irrigation, border irrigation and furrow irrigation. So next we'll be reading about, that is subsurface irrigation. So subsurface irrigation is the practice of applying water to the soil directly under the surface. Moisture reaches the plant roots through capillary action. So what are the conditions for the subsurface irrigations? The impervious soil which are at a depth of 2 meters or more, a very permeable subsoil, a permeable loam or sandy loam surface soil, uniform topographic conditions and moderate ground slopes. Okay, so these are some conditions of subsurface irrigations. Next we'll be reading about what do you mean by sprinkler irrigation. Sprinkling is a method of applying water to the soil surface in the form of spray which is similar to the rainfall. All of have must seen this is called as a sprinkler irrigation. You must have seen in your schools. Okay, so where the gardener sprinkling the crops or the sprinkling of flowers. So we can say this as a sprinkler irrigation. Okay, so sprinkling is the method of applying water to the soil surface in the form of a spray. Then the water is distributed through a system of pipes, usually by pumping. It is then sprayed into the air through sprinklers so that it breaks up into small water drops which fall to the ground. So there is one type of sprinkler irrigation, that is rotating sprinkler, which this system mainly is common used for the sprinkler irrigation. Each rotating sprinkler head applies water to a given area, size of which it is governed by the nozzle size and the water pressure. Then the sprinklers have been used on all the types of soils, on lands of different topography and slopes, and for many crops. Okay, so this is known as sprinkler irrigation. You can see the pictures of sprinkler irrigation here. So this is next we'll be reading about, that is drip irrigation. So drip irrigation is sometimes called as trickle irrigation and involves dripping water onto the soil at very low rates, that is 2 to 20 liters per hour from a system of small diameter plastic pipes fitted with outlets called emitter or drippers. Then the water is applied close to the plants so that only part of the soil in which the roots grow, unlike surfaces and sprinkler irrigation which involves the wetting the whole soil profile. So drip irrigation is sometimes also called as trickler irrigation, and it mainly involves the dripping water onto the soil up to 2 to 20 liters per hour from a system of small diameter plastic pipes. Then the water is applied close to the plants so that only one part of the soil in which the roots grow, that is unlike surface and sprinkler irrigation which involves the wetting the whole soil profile. Okay. Next, it is suitable for the high value row crops. So you can see here it is known as drip irrigation. It is mainly suitable for the high value row crops. You can see the row where the crops have been cultivated here. You can see here this is known as drip irrigation. So here are some. So these are all the types of irrigation that we mainly followed in India. So there are 4 types, as all of us know: surface irrigation, subsurface irrigation, next one is sprinkler irrigation, last one is drip irrigation. So these are 4 types, and these mainly questions occur in the semester exam. Mainly 5 marks or 10 mark question mainly arises from these types of irrigation that we followed in India. So you remember it, these types of irrigation. So next we'll be reading about duty, delta and base period. Okay, in the next slide we'll be reading this about, and we'll be reading about the derivation of this duty, delta and base period. Thank you.